Hello, and welcome to another piece of the puzzle. Part of my awakening began quite a few years ago, and through all the years of my studies, particularly in this case, Christianity, and studying the Bible religiously every day, there came a point where I began to find some loose ends. And this was a result of when I was taught the discipline of words. Many people today are not trained, nor disciplined, nor have the knowledge or the understanding of the importance of words. You can change a word and you change everything. And it was during this time that I began to seek not what was ahead of me. I'd been doing that all my life, and it was not, how shall we say, the pieces weren't adding up. So this is but a continuation of my journey. What I found, it is not what you found. It's not what you may have been seeking for. If you're watching, well, I hope you watch and understand. I bring the facts, and you're certainly welcome to your interpretation, and that is healthy. As long as we can understand that no one has all the answers. And by the way, you can't go to www.google and ask God to give you all the answers through Google. It doesn't work that way. Now, I know that may have sound flippant, but actually that is what's happened today. People can no longer remember phone numbers. They can no longer remember outlines. In fact, what we're finding out is that humans, as a species, we are digressing. But I digress. So let's continue on here. Let's see what we have. So before you can know where you are going, you first need to know where you have come from. It's true. I have made several videos, and I will continue to make videos to prove the point here, folks. You have been lied to. Your memory, my memory, the memory of our species has been erased and altered, being altered right now. This is primarily a document to show you how those things that you have taken on absolute foundation of fact may not be such. So let's continue. Look to the past. Seriously. Now, that contradicts everything, right? No, you're supposed to look to the future. No. If you do not know your past, and I don't mean in your lifetime, understand you're a part of something much bigger, more eloquent. Beauty that man cannot describe. As in the movie First Contact, I love that line Jodie Foster said. The reason why they should not send an astronaut or scientist to the outer reaches of our galaxy, but instead should send a poet. Yeah. So let's go on, folks. This is about King James I. And the reason why it's about King James I is because this is a man who has had probably the single largest influence on mankind since Paul. And I would say on more recent times would be Muhammad. This man here changed everything in history. So I think it only is fitting that you actually hear from his own words what he thought of himself. So here's the man himself. There he is. King James VI of Scotland. King James I of England. And I quote, he wrote this: "The Most High and Majesty Prince James, by the grace of God, King of England, Scotland, France, Ireland, Wales, defender of the faith, and renowned Christian king. Where the word of a king is, there is power." And it's his Ecclesiastes. There he is, guys and girls. That's the man. Many of you may not know the history of this man, and it's important that you do, because of his influence on the very foundation of which most people believe on. And if you think that the individual has no part in a recipe, so to speak, you're wrong. His DNA is all over the books that we grew up reading. So before the King James Bible, which was in fact authored, now you have to remember it had started years before this, but it was published in 1611. There we go. And you really ought to read the original, because it far differs from the versions that are now being put, and in fact, the fraudulent copies that are trying to be replaced for the original. And this is important, ladies and gentlemen. It's highly important. Let me just say something to you. You have a name. You are known by your name. Everywhere you go with your name. The old adage, your reputation precedes you. These are facts. Deities, kings, give themselves names. They give themselves name, and it has been recorded through history that has been reverenced regardless of who the god may be or the king may be. Regardless if it's being translated into a different tongue. And there's a deep study that we can actually do on translation just on that word alone. But let me continue. Here's a few factoids. In 1611, the King James Bible contained all of the Apocrypha. It was in the Holy Bible, including the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jasher, and the Jubilees, plus others. And the Messiah was not named Jesus. The letter J was not even in the English language, did not come into the alphabet until 1630 or later. From the time of Constantine, his name was Iesus, or Iesus, from the Hebrew was Yeshua, to Yeshua, to Yeshua. Scholars have now found that there are over 7,000 mistranslated words, definitions, or absolute words left out of the King James Bible. It's a fact. You can scream and holler all you want, but I'm just telling you, these are the facts. And I think, again, you have to stick to the facts. Names are important, particularly names of God. Let's continue. Here is a copy, and I know it's blurred, but that's how it came, of one of the original 1611 King James Bible. This is the Epistle of Paul, the Apostle to the Hebrews. And as you can tell, this king thought very highly of himself. I marvel when I hear people say, king of renown. Really? But there's more to this story, folks. Oh, by the way, here is the family tree, I guess you could say, of the 47 translators of the king's court. And these are the individuals that participated in doing the translation. Now, you got to think about this, folks. These people, these men, were commissioned by the king to translate what the king ordered them to translate of every sacred book to God. Fact. So, here we go. It started the process of the book that you have in your hand or in your house, whatever the case may be. But there's something more to the story. I want to know, who was King James? I mean, listen, if an individual, if you're going to elect a political leader, their character is as important as telling you what they will do, who they are. It tells you what framed them. And if you ignore that, it's to your own peril. Do you hear those voices? Those are the voices of those who ignored that. They're not here anymore. So let's do a little study on our friend. So in 1597, King James was a tormented king. Now, of course, this is not him. This is a depiction of a person who is deeply torn. And that is because you have to understand who James was. And when you begin to understand what happened in his life and what these events, how it began to form his personality, his belief systems, because you are reading it in your Bible. You are reading him. And actually, I should throw this in. You're probably also reading Shakespeare. Yeah. Hello, Sir Bacon. Yeah. Know about you. Many don't. But there's a few of us who do. Sir Francis Bacon. Anyway, he wrote a book. Yeah, King James wrote a book. Here it is. And this is the English, the Scottish English. Very difficult to read, and we will actually be reading from this. But here it is. Here is Donald Tyson's. His book is one that I'd encourage you, if you really want to read, and you should, about King James. He wrote the book, The Demonology of King James I. You have to understand about this man. This man, in his psyche, was messed up. In any psych test today, he would be considered to be a psychopath. And I can hear the shackles and the oh my goodness, people are just, their brains are just exploding. It's a fact, folks. Listen, I didn't write that. That's what he wrote about himself. That is an individual that has a very unhealthy opinion of himself. But he wrote this. So why? Why did he write this? Well, again, you have to understand a little bit about the king. Now, this is his bloodline. Here he is down here. Here's his family. This is the House of Tudor. They ruled and had the single largest influence in society in modern history in their reign and their current reign. Yeah, there can be just a whole one done on this, but this is not the point. So let's get some points. Who was he? Well, he was born James Stewart, June 19th, 1566. Edinburgh, Scotland. His mother was Mary, Queen of Scots. Her second husband was Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley. That was James's father. Mary was forced by Queen Elizabeth to etiquette. Well, you know what? I always love doing these things. You have these words and you need to trip up on them. But basically had her to advocate the throne in 1567, making James king at the ripe age of all of his wisdom of 1 year old. Now, for the first 12 years, he was not permitted to participate in state of affairs, and this actually had an impact on him. He became very paranoid. In fact, I don't know if it was his mother that may have fed into that, but needless to say, the events that happened in his life gave him good cause to be paranoid. He was not the picture of health. Again, he could not walk or stand up without aid well into his youth. In a child of that time, of being obviously the heir to the throne, and in this case, the king, a lot of privilege. And in his youth, his health hindered him. He really had a love for horses, apparently, and was out riding one day, and because his knees were so weak, he could not hold on to the horse, the stirrups, and fell in apparently a pond of water and nearly drowned. He was reported to have a sharp intellect. In fact, of all the criticism of this king, in which there's a lot of, and rightfully so, nevertheless, he had a very sharp intellect. In fact, what was said about him in his later years was that this was a man who was a master at manipulation. He would twist, he would lie, he would do whatever he had to do to get the praise and the attention for himself. And though he studied Latin and was quite fluent in it, there were other things that, I guess sometimes a king doesn't need to know everything. Because of this and other events, he became bitter towards those whom he perceived as a threat. And this later was to influence him anymore. He was raised by his guardians, Protestant, hated Catholicism, absolutely hated it. And this is going to play a very pivotal role for us today. In 1582, he was kidnapped, actually by a family of action, for a year. This had a deep emotional impact on this young king, an ignored king. He felt that even his peers, through uncles who ridiculed the king. In fact, one uncle, I think, was quoted as saying, "A child should not be heard from unless spoken." Slap in the face when you're a king. Now, in 1589, he married Anne, the second daughter of the King of Denmark, Frederick II, King of Denmark. This was later to begin. He began to have, I don't know what started it, but he became convinced that there were demons everywhere. That demons were attacking him. The demons were the ones who were possessing those who were conspiring against him. This is what he really felt. And because of this, and because of his hatred for Catholicism, the powers did not like this. They did not like it at all. So in 1590 through 1592, the young king presided over the North Berwick witch trials in Scotland. This event changed everything for history. Because of his, I don't know if it was a fascination, an absolute preoccupation, whatever it was, he was completely in this mindset that the devil was after to kill him. There was a boat wreck when he went to go to meet his bride on the voyage back. The ship encountered some very bad weather. They were actually had to be shipwrecked. And he swore that this was because witches had put a curse on him and a spell. And in this trials, it began that through one of the tortured testimonies that came out, the king was battling Satan. That's what she said. He believed that the devil considered him to be his chief opponent. Now, when this happened to the king, everything changed. He felt that now he alone, not the Vatican, not any other person on this planet, but he alone was going to be the defender of God and the faith. From this point forward, James considered himself as the sole defender of God and Jesus Christ. But we can't say Jesus Christ because James did not know him as Jesus Christ. Knew him as Jesus. So this began to completely shape this man for the rest of his life. Again, you doubt me? Let's go back and look at his words one more time. Again, you can see how he really did believe this. Look at his words. Again, now take it in how each word becomes important. And when you hear terms of royalty, position, deity, you're hearing what this person thinks. King James VI of Scotland, King James I of England. He certainly knew that he was king. The Most High, the Most High. How many times have you read that in the King James? And Mighty Prince. I read that in the King James, but I read that about Jesus. But he says, Mighty Prince James, by the grace of God, King of England, Scotland, France, Ireland, Wales, defender of the faith, and renowned Christian king. Well, there you go. Renowned in capital, folks. Capital R. And again, where the word of a king is, there is power. This is where this man's head was at, folks. So for the king, devils were everywhere. Now, these were the first laws that he forbid anyone to do. You could not invoke, consult, covenant with, entertain, employ, feed, or reward any evil spirit for any purpose. Take any dead body or any part of a dead body for use in any witchcraft, sorcery, charm, or enchantment. Practice any form of witchcraft, enchantment, charm, or sorcery in which a person is killed, destroyed, wasted, consumed, pinned, or lamed in the body or any part of the body. Aid, abet, or counsel others in any of the above acts. It continues to go on. This was also against the king's law. You could not locate any treasure of gold, silver in the earth, or any other hiding place. Well, I don't know if you go outside. I don't know where there's another hiding place outside of the earth or in the earth. Okay, locate any lost or stolen goods or things. Intend to provoke any person to unlawful love. Woof! There you go, folks. Destroy, waste, or impair any chattel or goods of any other person. You screwed up the first time, it was a felony. You screwed up the next time, it was the gallows. So two powers collide. This, folks, has a reverberation in the heavens. Because now we have a divided faith. We have who has been in power, that of the seat of God, or so they say, the Vatican, to this man who considers himself to be equal to the Lord. I mean, I didn't write that. When he calls himself a prince, that is to the equal of the Christ. Now, I know I'm going to get comments on that, but folks, I didn't write it. Do your word studies. But the point is here, this setup, and it's ongoing even today. So who wins? Is it the New World Order? Is it the Vatican? I mean, is it religion? Is it Christianity? Is it Islam? Who wins? I don't think it's mankind. I think the forces and the deck has been stacked against us, and I'm just trying to bring out to you pieces of how this all fits together, because I'm just like you. I don't like it when someone changes the name of God. And today it's so readily accepted. No, that's the problem with our society. It's the problem with who we are today. We do not have any idea. We have no fathom of the importance of a name. And if you begin to change names, and people say, well, no, Wayne, you're wrong. We say Jesus today because that's how we interpret it. Well, I only got one question back to you. Go to the Old Testament. Did they bother to change the name of Isaiah? Did they bother to change the name of Nehemiah? Did they bother to change the name of Daniel? Did they bother to change the name of Hezekiah? Let's talk about Hezekiah. He was the king of Israel. I didn't change his name. Let's go on. Did they change the name of Tutankhamun? No. You change the name, it has an impact. And all I am saying, why? I will leave these links here, but I think that for me, to know the name of God is important. And when I find that there has been, obviously, a deliberate change. Now listen, here's the deal. Now that we know his name is not Jesus, we have the ability, the technology and the means to begin to rewrite the books and to correct the error. True? I mean, I studied this for a long time. And if the Messiah, according to the book of Isaiah, would have the name of God in his name, that's why Yeshua has the name of Yohevah. Yeah. And that is the name of God. I just did a video on the angels. Archangels have the name of God. And the problem is that Jesus has no part of God's name in it. And folks, it's very important. I asked the question once, does Christianity worship the Hebrew God? Well, of course we do. There is no other way to answer that question. So, food for thought. Again, I am sure that there will be a lot of comments on this one. Again, folks, they've lied to us. They've changed the things that are sacred. And I know that there's a lot of controversy on this, but this has been my journey. And I thank you for sharing. Maybe you can pick up some pieces on it. But I love God, as all of you do. And the desire of our hearts is to please him. And I think that as God, he has a right to be called the name that he chose for himself, not the name that the church decided or some other guy sitting at some desk and decided to change the name of God. And that's what they did, folks, over 7,000 times. So maybe we can put the real name of God back in. All right, be kind to one another.